Hello, hello. Welcome to the forecast for August 4th until August 10th. My name is Desiree de Lunae, your acupuncturist, herbalist, and astrologer, and we're going to show you the tension and the pressure that is building up this week all the way until a full moon into the weekend. So definitely stay tuned for that full moon explanation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and please do like, subscribe, share, and hit that bell so that you are notified every time a new video is available. Let me make this big for you. All right, so let's begin with Monday. Monday, we are pretty much in the middle of summer this week. We're at the peak of summer here, peak of Leo season, and Leo season is very heart-centered. That's going to be a major theme through the week, is being aligned, being heart-centered, being truthful, being authentic and real and honest. Just that is just repeating over and over again. And if we aren't operating from that place, then you will see a purification, a detoxification that is happening as a result. So we've got Sun in Leo. Leo is, like I said, heart-centered. It's friendly, it's warm, it's fun, it's exciting, it's adventurous. It is definitely a sign that loves to play. So we've got to incorporate some fun time, some play time. And the sun, this is the home sign, okay, in Leo. So it is very, very happy here. It is well placed there. Mercury is a little bit of a struggle bus though, because Mercury is still in combustion and it's in retrograde. I mean, it's got two things against it. So Mercury does impact our thinking and our mind and our communication. And if there are like misunderstandings or just unclear thoughts, you're feeling a little bit more confused and you just lacking the clarity you so want, that's going to be a theme that keeps coming up all this week until Mercury gets out of combustion and also Mercury going stationing direct, because it's going to be in retrograde until August 10th. So we still have until next week of this. So Mercury also has another challenge, and I guess you could call it like it feels like a curse, but it's actually a gift type of a thing. We've got Pluto, and it's also impacting the sun too. But Pluto is in opposition with the sun and Mercury, more so Mercury. And so here with Pluto, it can bring more obsessive thoughts and worrying and paranoia and panic and just the mind running. One of the features of Pluto is that it makes the big things small and the small things big. So it can be very extreme in nature, is basically what I'm trying to say. So take this confused thinking that some of us may be going through. Now let's just like amplify it to the max with Pluto. So if internally you just feel a little bit jumbled and just not quite sure, okay, this is not a time to be making major decisions. We have too much against Mercury. We've got the retrograde, we've got the combustion, and combustion, if I forgot to mention, is when a planet is really close to the sun and the sun's rays are so strong, it's under the beams of the sun, that it's essentially overpowering and burning the planet next to it. So you can't see Mercury because the blinding sun rays is covering it up. So then that impedes the functioning of Mercury, the proper functioning of Mercury. So we've got the retrograde, we've got the combustion, and then we have Pluto in opposition, essentially a little bit of attacking. Okay, so our minds might be quite frazzled, might be quite restless and scattered and unclear, and we are just obsessing over the tiniest of things. Okay, so that is one challenge we're going to be dealing with for a bit, especially throughout this week. And it's interesting because we have, you'll start to see a subtle kite pattern right here. We're going to talk about it more towards the end of the week because that's when it gets a bit stronger. But I just want to point out this Mars-Saturn opposition. We talked about it last week, but this is building up. It's going to get exact later this week. And this is the planet of action in a face-off with the planet of restriction and obstacles and delays. So it's almost kind of like feeling a little stuck and feeling like you're just banging your head up against the wall and you want to take action, but you feel restricted from action and you're also confused on what action to take. So, look, here's the thing. First things first, just don't make big major decisions right now, especially if you're not 100% sure and clear about something. So we'll talk about this whole kite pattern a little bit more, but let's also talk about moon. Moon is in Sagittarius on Monday, which is a fire sign. And this brings also the feeling of excitement and adventure and inspiration. Look, if you want to learn something, this is actually a really good season to learn. It's just, let's gather some information, some data, some experiences, make it playful, make it fun. That's kind of the requirement here, is that whatever you're getting into, it's got to be playful and fun. I wouldn't get too serious right now, especially with, like I said, Mercury having so much trouble in general. But if you want to, try new things and go to new places, that would be very welcomed with Moon in Sagittarius. Okay, so on Tuesday, you'll notice that there is a bit more separation. Some say 8 degrees, some say up to 15 degrees, that it's combust. And right now we've got about 8 degrees away. So we should feel some relief. A little bit of relief. Now we still have that opposition with Pluto and we still have a retrograde, but unclear thinking is, like I said, one of the symptoms of what we're dealing with here. Now, I do want to come back to this, though, which is Venus and Jupiter. They are both in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted here. It's super happy here. And then Venus does very well in Cancer. I mean, there's kind of a natural affinity. Venus is the planet of love, and Cancer is very compassionate and nurturing. So what we see here is this beautiful emotional connection with the people in our lives, wanting to get close, wanting to share, wanting to just have that sense of togetherness. So despite maybe our decisions and our thinking being a little bit jumbled, we still have this desire to really, really connect and to bond with people. So definitely make room and time. It is summer season, right? For family. Obviously, these are healthy family members, but for family and for friends, siblings, whatever, just have some good times. Make room for laughter, play, fun, and good times. And this is just so enriching. It's kind of like creating really, really memorable moments with the people that you love, and the time that you spend with them, they're going to be different than other times. I mean, this doesn't happen all the time with Jupiter in Cancer and Venus also in Cancer, and these are conjunct. They're only 6 degrees away on Tuesday, but throughout the week, they're just going to get closer and closer. So here, this could be a time when you really develop true deep friendships right now, and maybe you come together right now and it's a friendship that you'll have for many years into the future. So cultivate these relationships. This is so fruitful, is what I'm saying. This is so rich in relationships that you're just going to get, for both of you equally, you both are going to, whoever they are, you're going to get so much out of your time together, and you're going to really feel the compassion and the heart and soul of the other person. There's going to be a merging that happens essentially, and it's very loving. It's very loving and kind and affectionate. So definitely, make time with your partner. If you've felt adrift from your love partner, for example, this would be a great time to rekindle that relationship and making room, because you may be able to come back together in a greater and deeper way than before. So that's the power of this whole Jupiter, Venus, and Cancer moment that we have. All right, so now let's go to Wednesday. I would say Wednesday, we've got a good amount of distance. I like using more of an 8-degree orb with combustion, but that's just my personal preference. I would say we've got distance from Mercury and Sun. So Mercury's a little bit more liberated. Okay. And Mercury, let me see, Mercury when we first started out was at, okay, 6 degrees. So yeah, it's getting closer to this Pluto. It's getting closer to this Pluto opposition. We still have Pluto opposition. And you know what's really the positive side? Because when we deal with oppositions, there may be pressure, but there's also growth. And the positive growth that may come from this opposition is like you're getting down to the core of things, down to the core of, how you're thinking about things and what you are believing, and what you are wanting to say, and getting to the core of your voice, the power of your voice, reclaiming your voice, your message. We talked a lot about a lot of this during the new moon in Leo last week. And it's because Pluto is part of this conversation, putting this pressure on Mercury and say, hey, make sure that whatever you say, it's truthful, it's honest, it's raw and potent and powerful. Like those are the words you want to be speaking out into the world. And with it being in retrograde, it's kind of like, oop, let me make sure I am saying what I actually intend and what I actually mean, and also what is in alignment with my own truth. So that's what Pluto is doing. It is doing some sort of like deep cultivation of our voice. All right, so the moon, though, is in a more grounded sign instead of Sagittarius. By this time on Wednesday, moon has transitioned into Capricorn. And Capricorn is more about responsibilities. And when moon is there, we're going to have a tendency towards, just taking care of the day to day, like practical things that are important, being very mature and responsible, taking care of our duties, essentially, our obligations. Those are all indicators of Capricorn. But you will also see that there is an opposition between Moon and Jupiter and Venus in Cancer. Look, Jupiter and Venus, these are more in Cancer, are more playful energies here. This is not a hard work arrangement, whereas Moon and Capricorn loves hard work, loves the mundane stuff, the nitty gritty, the grind. Like that, Capricorn is all about that. So we see this opposition. So it's a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a push pull. And so on this day, you might internally like have moments where you're like, ooh, I got to take care of stuff, but I really want to go relax. I really just want to, Netflix and chill. And so there's this a little bit of tension internally about like, I need to get this done, but I don't want to, and I want to go play, and also just finding that balance between nurturing yourself, because this is also self-care here, this Jupiter, Venus, and Cancer, nurturing the self, but then moon in Capricorn, okay, I gotta like nurture my responsibilities. I gotta take care of my responsibilities. So it could be a combination of both, have awareness of both on this day, and make room and space and time for both. That's the best way to deal with oppositions. Is you can't do them both obviously at the same time, but you gotta give what Venus and Jupiter and Cancer wants, but also what moon and Capricorn wants. You gotta have a little give and take essentially. All right. So next on Thursday, we have Mars making a move. This is a big change. Now, Mars is moving into Libra. It's been here in Virgo for the last couple of months, which has been a lot to do with, calculated, measured actions. Now, Mars in Libra, this is not its favorite place. It's actually in detriment. So Mars is struggling a bit because Libra is about beauty and love and connection, it's togetherness. And then Mars is like breakdown, action, severing. Like Libra also loves pleasure and play, and Mars is like let's fight. So it's very opposing in their natures. So here what you'll see is probably like a fight for justice, a fight for fairness, for example, and in fighting for collaboration, for example. So Mars is weakened in general here in Libra, but then now, this opposition has been building and we're almost at an exact opposition. And Mars is in opposition to Saturn. So remember, Saturn is about hard work, right? And responsibilities. But it's also very restrictive. It's very conservative in its nature, whereas Mars is impulsive. It's not conservative. And so you see that opposing forces. So, Mars, like the planet that causes us to act on our desires, is a little bit compromised. so we've got that to deal with. And then we also have this Mars opposite Neptune, because clearly, they're at the same degree. Saturn and Neptune are both at 1 degree of Aries. And Neptune, isn't also like have an affinity to Aries. But Neptune can cause confusion. It can cause delusion. It can also be very, very transcendental and spiritual too. But in this opposition, one of the things we have to be cautious of is our actions being based on deluded thinking, especially with Mercury in retrograde. So here again is like, hey, we need to just be careful. Look, this is not going to be around forever. It's going to be around definitely this week, but I feel like once this week clears, all this like confusion and delusion, and Mercury will go direct next week. It's just going to get a lot easier in terms of how I move forward, or how, you want to move forward. But think of this week as a little bit tense and a little limbo-y and a little unsure and hesitation and lack of clarity. Like that's just what's in the air right now. So please don't, jump into anything recklessly, and be patient. Patience is going to be your absolute friend. Okay. So then on Friday, I'm going to start talking about this kite pattern, because this is where it starts to get strong. It kind of started at the beginning of the week, but now we're getting pretty close to exact. And you will see that Mars is at 1 degree here. Uranus is at 1 degree up top. And Pluto, and the moon too, but Pluto is at 2 degrees. So this is a grand trine. And they're all in air signs. Okay, so this is great. And then we have another little mini triangle right here between Uranus, Pluto, and this Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And we've talked about this extensively in previous forecasts, but do you see that this kind of looks like a kite pattern? I do love this. Now, blue lines, remember, are a bit easier, a bit more harmonious. So we do have this benefit, even though we've got like planets that are in detriment. For example, Saturn is in its actually fall in Aries, and Mars is in this detriment in Libra. So here's the thing. Let's talk about this grand trine. Uranus, Mars, and Pluto having a powerful conversation together, and they're all in agreement. And the moon is connected to both of these, grand trine and mini grand trine, this whole kite pattern, because Mars is right next to Pluto. So Mars is like plugged in to all of this energy that's surging and circulating. And so Mars action, granted, it's in Libra, so there is more like fairness and justice behind it. Then Uranus is in Gemini, which this is the planet of change making, shaking things up, innovation, disruption, revolution, evolution. I mean, just change. Okay. Major, massive, incredible quantum leaps of change. And then we have Pluto, which is kind of like, when you're thinking about chemistry, like a catalyzer, it is making this transformation go forward and happen. It's literally changing the chemical nature of things. It's alchemical. That's why it's connected to magic. So we have these very active planets of Mars, Uranus, and Pluto in a grand trine, harmoniously working together, talking together, and restructuring our very lives in the background. And the moon, which represents our physical body, is connected to all of this. So the moon is feeling the changes. So if you feel surges of energy or even waves of tiredness, right? It could go either way or a mixture of both. It's because moon is part of this conversation, especially in the morning, more in the morning time, because the moon is, moves like a degree an hour. So it'll separate from this. But this is 9 a.m. Central Time that it's going to be that close. So definitely early morning. You'll feel it. Maybe you'll wake up like suddenly in the morning, feel like you already had espresso when you didn't. And then this is also then connected. This moon is also connected to this whole mini grand trine, which I've talked about, this whole Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto mini grand trine, which Uranus and Pluto, I talked about that, like catalyzing change, right? But then Saturn here stabilizes this change. It brings feet to it. It brings structure. It brings material. And so this isn't change that is just, fleeting, like a poof of light and then it goes away. No, it's long lasting. It's long lasting. And our actions, and then we have this opposition between Saturn and Mars, like, we have to be careful in our actions. We need to carefully construct this new evolution. We don't want to do it, like I said, in a reckless way, in a way that we are not calculating all of the potentials, all of the possible pitfalls. Like, we need to make sure that we have the correct measurements of things. Just like baking, you have to weigh things out. You don't want to have too much flour. You don't want to have too much milk or something like that. Then you just mess up the whole recipe. So that's how I see the benefit of this opposition, is that you're really, really crossing your T's and dotting your I's here. And then Neptune is part of this too. And Neptune holds that vision, connects us into spirit, connects us into something deeper. So we're touching on things that are out of this world, essentially, and have never existed in this world, and we're bringing it into form right now. So very, very activating, transformative, innovative time right now in general, but like, I think we're just really gonna feel it all on Friday. You know how I've been talking about like really careful action? I think you'll get a nice hit of clarity and understanding on this day, because now, this combustion is no longer, we've got a good amount of distance. This is 12 degrees away now, so I'm less concerned about Mercury. And because Pluto is there, Pluto is really going to help with kicking out any delusions as well. So let me know how Friday goes. It seems like a really exciting time. And Moon is in Aquarius too. I forgot to mention, Moon is in Aquarius on Friday. And this is much more analytical, more detached, and more logical. And it has more of that bird's eye view. So I think that's really helpful too. Now, if Moon was in, Scorpio with Mars, we'd be saying a different story, but I do like this placement here. Okay, so that's Friday. And then on Saturday, it's going to happen really like in the middle of the night. We're having a full moon, and that full moon is in Aquarius. Okay. And so it's at 3 a.m. Eastern time. So in the middle of the night. So if you are part of Rise and Thrive, you can do your your full moon ritual during the daytime on Saturday is fine. No need to get up at 3 in the morning. And with full moon, there's full illumination. This is going to give us a lot more clarity on this day, okay, compared to the beginning of the week, where you're able to see into it all. You're able to see a bit more. And Moon's in Aquarius, where Pluto is, and Moon was just touching Pluto. So we're going to have a bit more understanding. I would still say we're going to be cautious in our movements, but at least like you have insight into what's happening and where things are going just a bit more, especially with this whole kite pattern situation that we have. And you'll notice this kite pattern is quite strong. It's 1 degree Uranus, 1 degree Mars, 1 degree Saturn, and then 2 degrees Pluto. So it's pretty strong and tight throughout this whole weekend. Okay, so that's our full moon. And I talked about, yep, the mini grand trine and the grand trine. Let's go to Sunday. Now, Sunday, I just want to point out, like, this has been gradually getting closer, this Jupiter and Venus conjunction, and they're only a degree apart. So, very nourishing. I mean, I am so glad we do have that in the background. And let me know what part of your chart that the Venus and Jupiter is sitting in, because this is an area where you're getting a lot of luck. This is an area where you're getting a lot of nourishment and vitality and rich energy. And there's just a lot of generous energy here that's present, that's very giving in nature. And yeah, what house, basically, what house number is this in? So in this chart, for example, it's over the 11th house, and the 11th house has to do with friendships and networks and communities. So, a person who has a Virgo rising with Cancer in the 11th house probably is really nurturing a lot of relationships or deepening their relationships amongst, variety of circles and networks, to give an idea. But this brings a lot of like emotional comfort and emotional safety, which I think is very nice and welcomed considering the level of change that we're all going through. At least we can kind of have a sigh of relief here from this sector of our chart, and experience some emotional healing and reconciliation, things of that nature. And we do have this interesting rectangle too. Now we're totally out of combustion, by the way. And let's see, we're at 6 plus 8. Okay, so about 14 degrees away, so that's great. And we have a Mercury trine Saturn. So this is going to definitely improve that clarity of thinking, because Saturn is a bit more grounded. And then we have, Mars trine Pluto. We still have that grand trine. We're not going to talk about that again. But we have Mercury that's also in sextile with Mars. And so that's a nice conversation where it's going to help us be a little bit more decisive too. So much better on Sunday in general. But yeah, that Friday, it's like an electrical surge of energy for sure. Maybe even on Saturday too. All right, so that is it. Just know that full moon is on Saturday, middle of the night. And also, what area is Aquarius in your chart? Where is this full moon happening, and where are you getting some great, powerful illumination and clarity and revelation within? And let me know what part of the chart, what house that this whole full moon is in. That will give you a lot more insight there. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we will see you in next week's forecast. And next week, the things that are coming up include Mercury going direct. I am very much so looking forward to that. Did you have a lot of schedule delays? My goodness, we've had flight delays in my family, like a day delayed, flights canceled randomly after being in the airport for 3 hours. That's such a Mercury retrograde combust kind of moment. But yeah, schedule issues, it's been a lot. So I'm looking forward to us having Mercury go direct next week. Well, it actually happens on the 11th. 10th is the last day of the retrograde. And then on the 11th, we still have a little bit of a shadow period, but we'll talk about that next week. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.